Welcome to the Connect Your Health to Life coaching podcast. I'm your host, Seth Lusk. I'm a master certified life coach and published author with a decade-long background working in the health, wellness, and fitness industry as a personal trainer, nutrition specialist, and life coach. If you're anything like me or the clients that I work with, then you might be struggling with some confidence issues or struggling with feeling like you're not living your most fulfilling or authentic life. You may be trying to figure out why you have these amazing desires for what your most fulfilling life would look like, but you can't seem to create consistent action in your life to reflect those desires. So join me as we dive in deep on what it means to truly live a fulfilled and authentic life from the inside out. We're going to look from the perspective of an empowered mindset and uncover some of the reasons why you might be what's holding yourself back from living that most fulfilling life. But don't worry, this isn't about blame, guilt, or shame. This is about empowering you to see. I'm going to break through some of the biggest illusions and myths that we've all been taught to believe along the way. And I'm so excited to have you with me on this journey. So my only question for you is, are you ready to start living your most fulfilling life once and for all? Then let's get started, shall we? Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. For those of you listening in for the first time, welcome. You picked a very interesting episode to listen in on. I know I say it every week, but it's totally true. Every episode is super interesting. And those of you listening in now for the 74th time, it's going to be interesting for you too, because we're talking about something that I feel like a lot of people face. They might not use the exact word that I'm talking about today, but they probably use some terminology surrounding this that is not helping. And the entire, I'm not going to say the entire, a lot of the self-help industry is playing into the use of this mindset and this term in a way that I think is actually holding us back. So I want to talk about this topic today, open it up. We're going to talk about some of the obvious, topics surrounding this that we talk about all the time. And then I want to draw attention to an aspect of this that I feel like not enough people are talking about. And that we really want to hear about this because it's going to bring enough awareness for us to actually create some change in this area. And I think it's one of the biggest awakenings that humankind is facing right now is seeing the truth of this and making this shift in the way that we see ourselves and our life and changing. So what we're talking about today is this concept of self-sabotage. And what I'm going to encourage you throughout this episode to do is to stop using the term self-sabotage or even anything similar to it. And today we're going to talk about why it is that I feel that this is so important that we stop using the term self-sabotage. Okay, so what are we actually calling self-sabotage? Let's answer that first, starting off with the definition of sabotage, which sabotage, the definition is to deliberately destroy, damage, or obstruct something. Oftentimes what people are calling self-sabotage is actually a set of behaviors that sets them back further from their goals that they've set for themselves rather than moving forward towards them. And we call this sabotage because on the surface, it could appear as such, as if we're deliberately destroying, damaging, or obstructing ourselves. But it's not just the behavior and the appearance of the behavior that gets this label of self-sabotage. It's also the fact that most people that identify as someone who self-sabotages or thinks that they self-sabotage, it's also the fact that they know that the behavior that they are exhibiting, that they're calling self-sabotage, they know it will set them back or pull them further from their goals rather than moving closer towards them. And it's having this knowledge and then doing it anyway that brings this label in of self-sabotage because it appears that we are deliberately trying to destroy, damage, or obstruct ourselves. It's this whole mentality that comes along with these thoughts like, I should have known better, or I did know better, or I knew this would happen, so why did I do that? Along these lines of thinking that gets this behavior labeled as self-sabotage. This is kind of the mindset or some of the thoughts that come along with it. And so I want to bring some awareness to this today for a few reasons. As I mentioned earlier, it's because it doesn't serve us to call this self-sabotage, and I want to explain why today. Also, what it is it's not about sabotage. It's something else. And us calling it this keeps us from truly seeing what is going on with this behavior that we are calling self-sabotage. It gives us this idea that there's something broken about us or wrong with us or maybe even evil or destructive in our fundamental nature. And we see this about ourselves when we call this self-sabotaging. So let's talk about this today because I want to get this cleared up so that you all can have a clearer understanding of what this behavior is, where it comes from, and what we can do differently, starting off with stopping calling it self-sabotage. So you might be asking, why is it important that we stop calling it self-sabotage? Well, I already mentioned it earlier, or just a second ago. So when we do call this behavior self-sabotage, what we end up doing is we create this internal dialogue and this internal vision of ourselves that we are some sort of fundamentally flawed version of ourselves, with this hidden drive or force that we have no control over that is destined to or desiring to keep us from achieving our goals by deliberately destroying, damaging, or obstructing us in our path towards our goals. So we begin to create this idea that we are somehow broken. And the more times we try to go after goals and exhibit this behavior, and then we call it self-sabotage, and then we just, look at me, I knew I would do this and I'm going to ruin everything. What we end up doing is we reinforce this belief that something is wrong with us and that we will always ruin our chances at sticking with our journey to go after what is important to us in life. Okay? And we're going to talk about this a little bit later. It gives us the idea that we will always destroy our path towards the things that are important for us, right? But the truth is, most of us aren't even actually going after things that are important for us. We're going after inauthentic goals. We'll talk about that more later. So we begin to believe, the more that we use this term self-sabotage, that there is no point in seeing what is important for us, in having goals, or having any idea of what it is that we want to do surrounding what is important for us in life. And we do this because we start to convince ourselves that it wouldn't matter. We'll just ruin it anyways, as if it's something that we just do beyond our own control. So we even start to become a victim to ourselves. And in this story of victimhood, we are both the villain and the victim. So we create this story of complete disempowerment, of victimhood and villainhood of ourselves. And we begin to believe, why should I even bother going after my goals? What's the point of even setting them? What's the point of even knowing what is important to me in life? We start to believe that we have no power in our own life to create any change because we give our power to this set of behaviors that we exhibit when we try to make changes. And we throw our hands in the air and we say, see, I told you I was just going to screw it up. Or we say something like, no, there's no point in trying. I'm just going to screw it up anyways. Or what's the point in trying again? I already know what I'm going to do. Or something along these lines, as if it's something that we have no deciding power in. And the truth is, we don't have any deciding power in it when we call it self-sabotage because we give it its own power. We give it this idea that it's something that controls us that we do against ourselves, that there's something broken about us that we constantly try to sabotage ourselves. So we believe that we have no deciding power there. This is one of the biggest reasons why we want to stop calling it self-sabotage. The other reason we want to stop calling it self-sabotage is not only because it puts us in this defeated, disempowered victimhood to ourselves in our own lives, but also because the reason why we end up in this disempowered state is because when we call it self-sabotage, our ego has identified it. And remember we talked about last week when we talked about the ego, we talked about the fact that the ego is also completely satisfied with being especially bad if it can't be especially good. And so the ego gets us convinced that this self-sabotaging behavior is something that we're disempowered to, that we're in a victimhood to. And then it also gives us this false sense of certainty that we've identified it. We've identified the problem. It's that there's something broken with us. There's something so bad about us. And that's what the ego loves. Look at poor me. Look at me. I'm so broken. I'm so destructive. I can't even go after my own goals. That's how bad and broken I am. That's the ego there. And the ego convinces us to see, stop there. That's what it is. There's just something broken about you. So we never end up taking a deeper look and understanding at what is actually going on when we call this self-sabotage. Because you see, the behavior that we are describing as self-sabotage isn't actually about sabotage at all. I'm going to explain what it is here in a bit. But what is important for you to understand right now is that we never get to the point where we see this and understand that the behavior is coming from something else. Because the ego has convinced us to label it with certainty and just slip into this hopeless, helpless victimhood to it. So there ends the investigation. It's like at this point in time, there's no further investigation. It's a behavior that we just do because we're bad, we're broken, we're flawed, and poor us. We'll never go after our goals in life. We should just sit here and try and be as comfortable as possible. That's the ego talking there, my friends. There may even be a resistance to looking at the behavior because we're afraid, since we think that it's something fundamentally evil and wrong with us, that if we investigate it, it will reveal something even more fundamentally evil or wrong about us. And we might be afraid to look at that because we see that, the behavior, as what identifies us and makes us fundamentally evil or wrong or bad. Because again, we're identified with the ego here, and the ego has convinced us to label this behavior as being bad and broken, and we are that behavior. So we are bad and broken. And if we look at it, that means we have to see how much more bad and broken we are. So we label this behavior self-sabotage. We close the doors of curiosity and growth. We take on the label of being broken and victims to that brokenness. And then we either cycle through that broken behavior over and over in life and keep creating more and more evidence for ourselves that there's something wrong with us and that we are a self-sabotaging evil person or broken person. Or we give up entirely and we don't even try to go through the cycle of trying to do anything anymore and quote-unquote self-sabotaging, and we just adopt this sense of hopelessness that there's no point in even looking at what feels important to us in life or what we truly want. We should just stay in the cave and stay safe, listen to the ego, right? That's what is going on here. And I'm here to tell you that this is not true. First of all, you are not broken. You are not unable to change. You are not sabotaging yourself. You are not deliberately destroying, damaging, or obstructing yourself. You aren't evil, you are not helpless, and you're definitely not a victim here if you don't want to be. You can choose and see to believe that for as long as you wish to think it. But what I'm here to offer is that there is another way, and that there is a reason why you are exhibiting this behavior over and over again, and that there is a way out of this cycle. But it's one that's going to ask you to take an entirely different mindset when it comes to how you make changes in your life and how you view yourself, how you talk to yourself. So what is this behavior that we're calling self-sabotage? What is it actually? So what we call self-sabotage is actually it's a very complex set of beliefs that drive behaviors in a person that we then perceive as being sabotage because we do not understand the source of the beliefs. We don't understand the source of the behavior being beliefs that we have about ourselves and life. So one source that I just want to briefly discuss today. One source could be we may have many desires surrounding the idea of safety and certainty. And this comes from the biological drive of the brain. You know, our brain drives us to seek safety and certainty and comfort. And we have these beliefs sometimes surrounding that we need safety and certainty at all points in time. We need comfort at all times, that it means life. And we can buy into this illusion so easily. So we may have these beliefs about that, and then therefore we may exhibit very maladapted behaviors in our attempt to create this sense of certainty and safety and comfort where it actually isn't possible. You know, I've talked to you guys about this in life. Nothing in this physical life is actually designed to be certain or permanent. But oftentimes we seek our certainty that is actually a true desire. We seek it in this life. We seek it in things in this life that are actually designed to not be certain. And that causes us problems. That causes us these maladaptive behaviors that we then turn around and we call it self-sabotage. But the truth is that these behaviors come from these beliefs about needing to create certainty, safety, and security in life in areas that we can't actually create certainty, safety, and security. So this isn't some evil, deliberate, destructive, fundamental nature or some attempt to damage or destroy your desire to go after your goals. What it is an overlooked and misunderstood desire for safety. And a misplaced set of actions towards creating that safety and certainty in a place where safety and certainty doesn't actually exist. But we miss out on seeing that if we label it as self-sabotage. And then we begin to see ourselves as being this evil, destructive being that is just bent on sabotaging ourselves, and there's nothing we can do to stop that. We're just always going to be that. But when we understand the true need here, and the true want behind the behavior, we can actually begin working on a more productive way of dealing with the belief and the drive of the behavior. And even begin to change the beliefs of where we create safety and certainty in our life. So the behavior can also stem from, and I talk about this all the time, the behaviors that we label as self-sabotage can actually stem from the fact that we're not going after authentic goals. And there are so many people out there going after goals that are not authentically their goals. And you'll know this because you'll hear a lot of should, or I need to, or I have to. They don't have their own authentic vision of why this is their goal and why they want it, separate from what anyone else is going to think or believe about them. It's not their authentic goal. And when we go after these goals, oftentimes we reach this point where we're pushing ourselves so much in these very unhealthy ways to achieve these goals, with this belief behind it that we're not going to be good enough until we've reached these goals. And we may perceive that we won't be good enough in our construct of society as a whole until we've reached these goals. So we're pushing ourselves and pushing ourselves and pushing ourselves that I have to achieve it to be good enough. And it's not even really something we want to achieve, or that even if it is something we want to achieve, we don't understand why it is that we want to achieve it. We think we need to achieve it to be good enough in the eyes of other people or in the eyes of society. And what this does is it leads to behaviors that take us back to old familiar habits and veer us off course from the goal that we are chasing. But this isn't actually a deliberate attempt to destroy or obstruct us from our true goals. It is actually our higher self calling us to stop putting conditions on our worth and forcing ourselves to chase after something in this life that is not genuine for us in order to prove our worth to the world. So this isn't about self-sabotage. This is actually about your higher self being like, hey, you're doing it again. You're chasing after something that you don't really want, and you don't understand why you're doing it, and you're doing it to try and prove your worth again instead of just seeing your worth. And so your higher self may actually come in and pull you back into old behavior patterns, pull you off course of this, because it's trying to direct you back to the fact that you started this whole entire process with it being about pleasing other people and putting conditions on your worth. And your higher self knows that if you go back into those old behaviors, you'll get a reset, a chance to see the truth about what it is that you want, instead of sticking with this path of chasing after things that you don't really want in life. Starting back from the beginning, where it's just you and your painful beliefs, will give you the opportunity to face it again and maybe actually go after seeing what is true for you, what you truly want in life, and going after that, versus going after inauthentic goals. So this is not, again, it's not about self-sabotage. It's actually about your higher self trying to show you this isn't for you. Stop chasing after it because you don't even truly want this. And if you're being honest with yourself and you would stop and look, you would see that. Okay, so another place that this behavior that we're calling self-sabotage can come from is the falsely programmed desire for immediate gratification and comfort. We have been taught our entire lives by society and by the people surrounding us that the idea of life is to chase after comfort, to be comfortable all the time. The goal is to never be uncomfortable. You'll know that you're successful in life when you reach that point where you are always able to create comfort for yourself no matter what. When it gets uncomfortable, you can just reach for something and find that comfort. And we may exhibit behaviors that pull us away from our goals when we step towards them, because anytime we step towards a new goal, we'll have to take actions that are unfamiliar and therefore uncomfortable for us. So we've taught ourselves to avoid discomfort, but then we're trying to grow, which requires for us to do new things which will be uncomfortable. So we literally are teaching ourselves this sort of contradiction. And our brain doesn't know how to handle that contradiction. So we exhibit these behaviors where what it looks like is self-sabotage, but really what it is where our brain is just doing what we told it to do. Seek comfort. find comfort. And comfort exists in the things that we're familiar with, the things that we were doing that don't get us where we want to be in life, that don't get us towards our true desires in life, that don't get us to expressing our true selves in our life. And so we'll start heading towards a goal, and then we'll be like, oh, this is getting really uncomfortable. Oh, remember this? You love this. This is comfortable. Do that. Do that for a little while because this is not working. And then we do this behavior, and then we call it self-sabotage. But truly what it is that we're trying to avoid discomfort because we're telling our brain that the goal of going after this goal is comfort. And your brain's like, well, why would we go after that goal for comfort? We have comfort right here in the candy bar, in the cake, in the alcohol, in the sex, in the pornography, in the gambling, in the shopping. And then we do these things that knock us off course towards the goal that we were heading towards because our brain's like, why on earth would I work for the comfort when comfort's available around me all the time? Why would I delay my gratification for comfort when you're telling me the goal is comfort and comfort's available right over there in that Toblerone candy bar or that Snickers or that ice cream or that pizza or the glass of wine or the martini or going shopping for some new clothes or posting another post on Instagram and seeing how many likes you get or scrolling through TikTok and watching the next video of the cute puppy and, why on earth would I delay my gratification and do all of this work for comfort when there's comfort right here? And then we call this self-sabotage. But the truth is, our brain is just doing what we told it to do. And this brings me to the other source, which is very similar to this desire for comfort. And this idea of seeking comfort always. It's very similar to this, but it goes a little bit deeper. It combines the reasons that we've previously talked about and creates this source of behaviors that we label as self-sabotage. And it comes from when we approach change from this idea of I'm not good enough, I'm broken, I need to be better, my life isn't good enough yet, I'll be good enough when I ... I will love myself more when I ... Any of these sort of approaches or any approach that has energy similar to that is a source of this behavior that we call self-sabotage. And this is what I really, really want to talk about today. Because I think this is the source of self-sabotage that everyone is experiencing, or what we're calling self-sabotage, that everyone has experienced, but nobody is talking about. The feeling or these behaviors that we're calling self-sabotage actually stem from the feelings and emotions that we are being taught to use to create change in our life. And I'm talking about feelings like shame, fear, guilt, not good enough, not enoughness, not lovable, scarcity, inferiority, disconnection, whatever it may be, non-acceptance. The list could go on and on of these emotions that we use to drive discomfort into ourselves. Such a pain with who we are, such a suffering with who we think we are in our behaviors that we just can't stand it and we have to change something to be good enough, to be better, to be happy with our lives. We have these beliefs about conditional worth and not being good enough, and that drive using the emotions that come from that. We use those emotions and our discomfort with them as a reason to run away from where we are in our life, to escape that discomfort from those emotions, and we make that how we go after our goals. And we do it without truly understanding where those emotions are coming from and the illusions of the beliefs that we have that drive those emotions. So just like the desire for constant comfort can lead to these behaviors where we seek immediate gratification, immediate comfort, why on earth would I delay gratification and go towards my goals? It can also lead indirectly to these behaviors from our use of discomfort as a reason to even begin change. We can indirectly create behaviors that we label as self-sabotage from using discomfort as a reason to change. And I'm talking primarily discomfort with our own feelings and emotions surrounding how we see ourselves in our lives and talk to ourselves. And the reason why I want to draw attention to this today is because I hear so many inspirational speakers out there, even coaches, therapists, psychologists, athletes, entrepreneurs, millionaires, these people that we look to, we buy their books, we watch their TED Talks, we subscribe to their YouTube channel, we listen to their podcasts. We subscribe to their Instagram and we follow them with their inspirational quotes. And they're all using this language of changing our lives because of we could be better. We could change our lives and be better, as if we're not good enough already, as if we have to change something about our life for us to be good enough. And it starts off with this, we start our journey towards change with this fundamental belief that there is something bad and wrong with us as we are, and we need to change to be better and feel good about ourselves. And we use this disgust with ourselves, this self-hatred. And yes, I'm using very strong words here. And don't be fooled here, my friends. Self-disgust and self-hatred can seem so benign and so innocent sometimes. We can use little cute phrases of how to use it and make it sound all nice, but the truth of the matter is, if you are using any sort of belief or energy that says that who you are right now is not good enough and you need to be better in your life in order to be happy and in order to be good enough and in order to be worthy, then my friends, you are using the energies of self-hatred and self-disgust to drive yourself away from your discomfort into what you hope is the change that you want to make. And I hear so many inspirational speakers and coaches and therapists and psychologists and athletes and all these people we look up to using this kind of language, this kind of idea to tell us this is how you go about changing your life. They talk about how they saw their lives as being not good enough and needing to change to be good enough. Or, I was so unhappy with my life and I reached rock bottom and there I had to go up because I was so disgusted and so unhappy with my lives. And we get so motivated by this. We're like, yeah, I'm going to change that way too. I'm going to get so disgusted with myself. Look at me. Look at this filth I'm rolling around and look at how disgusting I am. And look at how I'm not taking care of myself. I'm such a bad person. I can't believe I'm this person. I need to be better. And we get this idea that we need to create this image of ourselves that we hate enough that we can drive the desire for change. And there is a fundamental flaw in this, my friends. This approach will never drive you towards a true, authentic desire that your higher self has or wants in this life. It never will. That energy is not designed for that. We are so tied to our egos and this desire to get out there and create change. And we forget that these changes that we're making in our lives are not changes to us. They are merely us learning how to express what was always us, what was always so effing awesome, so unconditionally beautiful and lovable and acceptable. These changes we are making in our life are not to make us that. It is to express that we have always been that. But we are so tied to our egoic state of making changes out there to prove our worth and get the validation out there to finally be able to see, oh yes, I've proven it. I'm finally worthy. I'm finally good enough. That we forget that the changes we're making are not because we're not good enough. We're making the changes to express who we are because we are good enough. And so many of us buy into this illusion in this human experience. But the truth is, our higher selves still get through to us to a certain point and they remind us of our unconditional worth and our greatness and who we are beyond this physical expression in this life, beyond this physical body. And there is a part of us that desires to change things in our life because we want to express more truly who we are in this world. But because we're so tied to ego, and we're so tied to what we do out there being what tells us who we are and how good we are, we forget that what we're doing is expressing what we already are in the changes we're making. We're not changing who we are in those changes. We are expressing who we've always been this entire time. And we are learning through these changes how we can express that more and more fully in this life. And when we fall down on our faces a million taking times trying to learn to express that in this life, it doesn't mean that we are a failure. It doesn't mean that we are not good enough. It means that this physical body, this physical life is limited, and how we can express how freaking awesome we all are when we stop identifying with this life and the changes we can make in it. When we start realizing that we are a being having a human experience, and that being is untouchable by anything we can do in this life, and that we are here merely to remember who that being is and to express it as fully as we can in this life, and that's the changes we want to make. When we can remember that, then we can go about making changes in our life. So this idea of self-sabotage, this idea, it stems from this belief that we are somehow not good enough as we are. That we need to use self-hatred, self-disgust, and I'm talking things like shame, guilt, fear, not good enough, not acceptable, I can be better. Using energies like that as the reason to change drives this behavior pattern that we are calling self-sabotage. We, as a world, and our various societies and their social constructs, we're so confused and attached to the ego that we have gotten this generational belief passed down to us, that we set out on our journeys in this life to prove our worth through achieving results or goals. And we use emotions like shame, guilt, not enough, fear, I'm less than, I'm inferior, I'm uncertain about who I am, I need to prove who I am, and so many other emotions and sets of beliefs about our worth and how conditional it is. And we use those to create enough pain for us that we change in order to escape that pain that we created. But this is so problematic for us for a couple of reasons. Number one is that when we change to escape something, we have no direction of where we're actually going. So we launch ourselves at these hyper speeds away from something that we think we don't want and that we blame for being the source of the pain that we created and we're trying to launch ourselves away from. And we chase this constant comfort illusion by attempting to escape our true emotional experience and understanding where it's coming from, only to get enough distance between us and the thing that we thought was causing our pain that we needed to escape. Only then, guess what? We're still experiencing pain. When we get away, we still experience pain because the pain is coming from our thoughts. And then here we are in this unfamiliar territory, and there's this uncertainty and this discomfort, and we're like, gee, I don't, what do I do now? Like, I had no idea where I was going. All I knew is I needed to get away from that, but now I've got some distance from me in that, and I still feel uncomfortable. I see this with weight loss people. They start losing weight, and they start, like, getting to where they're at their goal weight, but they still feel the pain of them not accepting themselves because they didn't learn the fact that losing the weight wasn't going to get them to love themselves. They have to choose to love themselves. They have to choose. That is a choice. It's not a number on a scale. And so they get closer and closer to their goal weight, and they're further and further away from the disgusted image that they had of themselves that they were trying to run away from. And then they're like, but I'm still feeling pain. I still don't love myself. I still don't feel loved. They still feel the pain of all of the conditions that they put on their worthiness, on their love, on their acceptability. So what do you think they do? This whole entire time they taught themselves to escape pain. Well, guess what? They're in pain. And they're in the discomfort of a new territory where they don't know where they're going. So guess where they go? Back to the familiar. Because at least the familiar thing looks a little bit more comfortable than this unfamiliar place where we don't know where the hell we're going and we're still in pain. And there's no direction where we actually want to go because we don't know our own true desires. We don't know ourselves. We don't love ourselves enough to even see ourselves. So we begin the cycle again. The second reason why using escape from pain and these emotions that we use of self-hatred and self-disgust as our motivation to change, the reason why this is problematic is when we make it about escaping pain, we set ourselves up to believe that the goal is to never feel pain. And then we continually believe that there's something wrong in our life when we feel pain. But the only thing that we're looking at as our goal is to escape the pain. So there's no clear picture of the true desire of where we want to go. just the false desire to escape pain. And we don't even see that we are the source of the pain. So we do whatever we can to numb the pain as we run this cycle over and over and running from pain without knowing where we're truly wanting to go. And then we get to the unfamiliar territory that we're running away. And we have this quest to numb pain along the journey away from pain, and we have no sight of our true desires, and our life becomes the cycle of numbing behaviors to escape pain without any vision or purpose in our life, and it's just about seeking pleasure to escape pain. And then we exhibit these behaviors and we call them self-sabotage, but really all we're doing is we're teaching our brain to escape pain. The self-sabotage isn't about self-sabotage. It is your brain doing exactly what you're telling it to do. And you don't even realize that you're telling your brain to do it because you've allowed yourself to slip into the role of victim to your own brain and to your own self. You won't even take charge of the tool that is yours. The one that you told that the goal is to escape pain. And in this whole quest, we forget what is truly important and valuable to us. We're just in this constant quest to escape pain, even if that means running to the familiar habits that we know are not getting us where we want to go. But the only thing that we know is that we want to escape pain. We don't know where we want to go. So where else are we going to go? If the goal is to escape pain, why keep pushing ourselves when we don't know where we're going and we're in pain? Why not just go back to the familiar behavior that's at least more comfortable than the uncertainty of growing? And then we call this self-sabotage. We don't even see we are programming ourselves to do this because of the way that we approach change. What we are calling self-sabotage is really us not taking the time to know what is truly important for us and where we want to go in life. What's interesting is we call it self-sabotage, but we can't sabotage a journey that we're not even on. We're not even on the path where we actually want to go to sabotage it. We're just running away from pain. And guess what? We're succeeding because we go right back to the comfortable old behaviors that don't get us to where we want to go. So we're not sabotaging at all. We're actually doing exactly what we told ourselves to do from the start, which is to get away from pain, thinking we can escape it like it's a bad thing. And yes, sure, we can talk about physical pain and the fact that physical pain is an indicator that something is damaged in the body that we need to rest and give it time to heal. This is true. But that doesn't mean that the pain is bad. Without the pain, we wouldn't know that the thing was broken or damaged inside of our body, that we needed time to rest and heal. The same goes with our emotional pain. It is important. It's there to tell you there's something effed up and damaged in your thinking and beliefs, and you're creating this pain for yourself, and then you're trying to run away from it. But guess what? You're taking it with you because you're the one creating it. And you believe that you need it to create change. So it becomes truly problematic here for us. We are using these emotions that we label as uncomfortable to drive change. And this is one of the biggest drivers of the behavior that we label as self-sabotage, and no one's talking about it. There is a part of us that will always know that we are here to grow and express from a place of abundance, because we already are what it is that we want to change in the world and show. We already are that. We're just showing it. And we believe we have to create the change in order to be what it is that we want to believe that we are. We change things in this life to express our unconditional worthiness that is it's untouchable. No matter what the results of our actions are, that unconditional worthiness is already there. That abundance is already there. But we will always have this desire for more expression. So we are here to remember and to remind others and ourselves to remember who we are in this life. And that we are simply here to learn, to remember, and express it in this life. To express it in consciousness. So that desire is always there for us as humans. Not because we're not enough, but because we are so much. That we have this internal drive to express more and more of it in the world, to remind ourselves and to remind those around us, hey, we're not this. We're not this. We're in this life to learn how to express who we truly are into this consciousness, into this physical world. But who we are is untouchable by what we do here. So the desire for growth and change is constant in our human experience. But here is where this, what we call self-sabotage, comes in. Because when we use emotions like shame, fear, guilt, and not enough, scarcity, discomfort, pain as our drivers for change, all we do is run away from what we think we can avoid and that we don't want in our life. We ignore the source of that pain being our own thinking and beliefs. We're not running to anything that we truly want. We're just trying to escape ourselves. So we run and run and run as fast as we can, and we create some distance between us and the thing or the lack of something that we think is the source of our pain and suffering. And because we have no idea who we are and what our purpose was, where we wanted to go, now we have distance and there's no more drive to keep going anymore. Because we have distance from the thing that we thought was causing our pain, that we thought we wanted to escape. But now we don't know where to go and we're still in pain. We're still in suffering because we're the ones creating it. And then we've taught ourselves that we need pain to change. And that drive to change is still there. So we go back to the old familiar habits because at least we're familiar with that pain. We're familiar with that suffering. And part of our higher selves, I think, believes it needs to give us another chance to go back through that pain and suffering and hope that this time we wake up and see you're causing it for yourself, my friend. Nothing in this life is causing it for you. And you have all of the beautiful power here to do something about it differently when you wake up to see your unconditional worth and stop identifying with your ego. The ego is your tool. We as humans create it. Go back and listen to my episode on the ego if you don't know what I'm talking about. The ego is our tool to use, and we're letting the ego use us, just like we're letting our brain use us, because the ego and the brain are kind of constructs that work together. The ego is a construct of the brain. But my friends, we're all out here, identifying with our egos, identifying with our thoughts and our behaviors and our brains, letting them use us. Chasing inauthentic goals, telling ourselves that the goal is to get away from discomfort, and telling ourselves that the only way that we can change is to be in enough pain. Can you see how that's a bit of a conflicting message? And then we call it self-sabotage. But literally, all it is we are doing exactly what we're telling our brain to do. It's not sabotage at all. This is about change coming from an inauthentic place of scarcity, fear, not enoughness, of lack, and using aversion to pain as being the motivation for change. The behaviors that we call self-sabotage stem from us not knowing who we are, not being willing to see our unconditional worth and own it, even if no one else sees it. And I know that sounds scary. And I know we're told all the time, but biologically we're social creatures. We need acceptance. And yeah, we are biologically social creatures. But here's the thing. Even if no one ever talks to you for the rest of your life, you are still connected to every human being on this planet. And we lose sight of that. And we get so lost in the ego and the brain and their biological drives for connecting us to this life that we forget who we are and forget that our desire for connectedness isn't going to be accomplished in this life. If we feel connected in this life, it's not because of other people. It's because we choose to see that no matter what other people do, we are connected. It's the reason why some people, monks, can spend their time alone and never speaking and feel 100% connected to life and everyone around them. And why some other people are surrounded by millions of people that adore them and love them and wish to be connected to them, and they feel completely alone. So these behaviors of self-sabotage, my friends, they come from us forgetting who we are. They come from us identifying with the ego, identifying with the biological drives of our brain, and the constructs of the ego that the brain created. We forget that the ego is a tool that we created for us to become aware of ourselves, so that we could move past the ego and come back to our connectedness with more awareness and more appreciation. Parts of us will always feel this pull to express more and grow more. And that's where that desire to change comes from. But we keep convincing ourselves that it's because we have to believe we're not good enough to change. Because we've wired our brains, we've told our brains that we have to create enough pain for ourselves in order to change. We're using aversion to pain or the desire to escape pain as our motivation to change. And this is driving what so many of us are becoming a victim to in our own lives, to ourselves, and calling ourselves self-sabotagers. looking at ourselves as being fundamentally flawed and broken. We can't change because we'll just self-sabotage. I am here to say that enough is enough with this, my friends. You can keep believing this all you want. You can keep chasing after what these other entrepreneurs and millionaires and people that are telling you, oh, you just need to work hard at this sport and become the best at it and become the best at your craft and show the world and make a lot of money and get a Lamborghini and get a mansion and look at me, I was disgusted with my life and now look at me, I have all this money and these cars and I'm so happy with my life. You can keep buying that crap all you want. You can keep buying into the illusion that the more things you have, the happier you're going to be with yourself. You can keep buying into the illusion that if you create enough disgust with yourself in your life and enough self-hatred, that eventually you'll be able to launch yourself far enough away from where you are in your beliefs about yourself that you'll finally escape your own pain and suffering. But my friends, I'm here to tell you it will never work. And you are not self-sabotaging. You are just buying into a programming to where your brain depends on pain to desire to escape it. You're literally teaching your brain to desire the thing that you're also teaching it to escape as being what is necessary to drive the change that you believe is necessary for you to be good enough. But the truth is, the change that you want, when you clear out those false desires, is not going to come from the space of lacking and needing to create things to be good enough. It's going to come from recognizing you're already good enough and showing up in this world to express it unstoppably. And when you screw it up, okay, well, that wasn't how I wanted to express it, so let me try this differently again. But it doesn't change who you are or the fact that you're already good enough. You just get to keep showing up and trying as long as you're here, as many times as you want to, as many times as you can. So the truth, my friends, here is that we don't see our true desires. We've bought into this illusion of false desires. I've talked about that before. We've bought into this illusion that we need to feel bad enough about ourselves before we can change. And then we try and use that away from energy that I've talked about before instead of toward energy to drive us away from the disgust, the hate for ourselves. And the truth is, my friends, seeing true desires can feel very scary. Because true desire doesn't come from the brain. It doesn't come from the brain's desire to seek comfort. It doesn't come from the ego and its quest to be special in this physical life. And that feels scary to our brain and our ego. And because we identify with them, when they start throwing their temper tantrums, we believe we've done something wrong. And so we just go back to being identified with them and doing what it is that they say because, oh, this is uncomfortable, so I must be doing something wrong. Because remember, we've taught ourselves that the goal is to escape pain. The ego will fight you on knowing your true desires. But also remember that the ego is not bad. The ego is something that we invented out of our desire in this human journey to know ourselves more fully. And we journey through the ego. It is a necessary step for us to journey through the ego to remember who we are and come back to our oneness with awareness and appreciation. It's like the story of the prodigal son. I talked about this in the ego episode. We learn to appreciate something by losing it and recognizing what we have with it. With our oneness, with our connectedness, with remembering who we are. But the ego fears us doing this. And the brain is identified with the ego because the ego is a construct of the brain. So seeing your separateness from this, it's our first step in the journey to remembering who we are and being able to get out of this cycle of behaviors that we're calling self-sabotage and being a victim in our own lives. But I want to remind you that your brain is going to throw a temper tantrum. So is your ego. This is why I say to work with a coach, because it can feel so confusing. You have been buying into this programming for years, and I'm here to tell you there's another way. Coaches are here to guide you. I suggest looking for a coach that doesn't use shame and guilt and fear and disgust as being the energy to motivate change. So you might be asking, why am I telling you about this today? Why are we talking about this today? I want you to begin to see that this behavior of self-sabotage is not self-sabotage, so that you can break this cycle of seeing yourself as being some victim and broken thing in your life. To get past this complex soup of experience, beliefs, and emotions in the ego, all trying to figure out how to work together alongside you, who has forgotten who you are. And all of this put together is creating this behavior that we call self-sabotage. All of the tools that were supposed to be for us to use are using us because we're letting them. We're not self-sabotaging. We're doing exactly what it is that we've told ourselves and our brains to do. But here's what's so powerful about that, my friends. You've been doing this for years because you taught yourself to do it. It's all made up. So if you're afraid that you can't change, my friends, you created the illusion that you're living. If you're powerful enough to create that, just imagine what you'd be powerful enough to create and the changes you could create in your life, the ways you could express who you truly are if you took another path, if you took another set of beliefs. I know that so many coaches and inspirational speakers out there talk about their stories of shame and how they hit a low point in their life, they hit rock bottom, and that caused them to see the changes that they need to make in their life. And they may have been in a lot of pain at some point in time, but pain is not what created the change to an empowered life for them. And if they did use pain to change their life, I promise you they do not feel empowered in their life. Some of these coaches out here are still suffering, trying to run from pain and taking millions of people along with them for the ride as they try and make more and more money in hopes that they're eventually going to feel satisfied and happy with themselves. And I'm here to tell you there is another way. And anyone living a truly authentic, empowered life is not using pain as their motivator to change. I promise you that. Pain may be an indicator to look at life more closely and see what's going on and why. But it is not the thing that we run from for change. And anyone living an empowered and truly authentic life knows that. I promise you. My question is, would you like a way to change that creates real, authentic movement that is unstoppable in the direction that you actually want to go? Would you like to, for the first time in your life, see where it is that you, your true self, wants to go? And would you love to take that direction and do it unstoppably in a journey in which pain is okay? Encountering pain is okay. It's entirely normal. It's an important opportunity for growth and expansion, not a sign of something is wrong. How would you like a path that is driven by your truest desire, that is not driven by conditional worth and comparison and competition, or a desire to numb out from how unhappy you are with your life? Because what I'm here to offer you all is that there is a way. And I've been trying to tell you all this the entire time. There is a way to create true, genuine growth, expansion, and change in your life that is not driven by this desire to escape the suffering that you are creating in your own life, my friends. There is a way to change that does not involve this yo-yoing back and forth between torturing yourself to hurry up and get away from an image that you have in yourself, in your head of yourself that you hate, only to find yourself heading right back towards the vision of yourself that you create enough suffering for to get away from, and then heading back towards it in hopes that you'll create enough suffering again to change. This new way, it's going to involve you shedding away this idea that you are somehow a broken person that self-sabotages. You do not self-sabotage. You've bought into some heavy illusions, but you are not some broken, deliberately destructive creature of sabotage in your life. You've taught yourself to be identified with that through the ego and its desires. You have become a tool to what was supposed to be a tool for you to use. You've forgotten who you are, but I promise you this, you do not self-sabotage. You're not even on the path towards where you want to go to sabotage it. So you might be having the question, if we don't use shame, guilt, pain, fear, suffering, whatever it is, all the things that we've been taught our entire lives to use to change. And trust me, my friends, I understand. I bought the t-shirt and burnt it. Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt and burnt it. I bought into that illusion for so many years that I need to create enough disgust with myself to change. So you might be wondering, what do we do then if we don't use these things? First of all, you want to take time to recognize this is something you've been training yourself to do your entire life. And changing this, recognizing this is a journey of waking up from the ego. It's going to ask for patience and compassion from you. And love, not guilt, shame, and fear-based tactics. It will be a journey of love and remembering. You have been training your brain to create situations of pain and suffering for you to motivate change because you were taught that this is how you grow. This is how you learn. This is how you change. But it's not true. So that's the first step, is recognizing that you can express and expand your true self out into the world without having to use the tools of the ego on yourself to create that change. Once you've recognized this, you'll want to take time to pause, not just jump straight into trying to change everything about you and your behavior, because this will be the desire of the ego. You will want to take time to first get to know yourself, remember yourself, find what it is that is truly you, and then find all the false desires in your life that are truly not you. Then we want to start clearing out the false desire. I talked about this in my episode where I talked about true versus false desires. And we'll allow an empty space to exist in this place. It will feel uncomfortable, but remember, here's the thing. That space is not truly empty. It just feels empty. You will want to let it feel empty long enough to begin to recognize the true desires that exist there that you've been covering up with false desire this entire time. And then you want to let those desires grow. Feel the longing for them. Feel yourself recognizing that those desires come from who you already are, not who you need to become. And we allow them to grow by keeping our lives free from those false desires, by not slipping back into identifying with the ego. Let yourself see your true desires and know them intimately. Get a clear picture of how you're going to go about setting and expressing them in your life around you. Understand the purpose of these desires and that you're here to express them in the world so that you can become unstoppable in expressing them. Understand the purpose behind the desire so you can become unstoppable, no matter what ways of physically expressing them may become limited to you or abundant to you in this uncertainty and impermanent life. And then you begin using energies of abundance to express these true desires in the world. We use curiosity, we use courage, we use unconditional love and compassion to drive the changes that we make out there and expressing who we already are. Because we're not making the changes to who we are. We're making the changes and how we express who we recognize that we already are. After that, my friends, it's just about showing up in your life and creating from that space. How you're going to get there is going to be unique to you. There is no how-to guide out there that's going to work for you. Because if it worked for someone else, it's not going to work in your authentic journey in life. And this is why I recommend working with the coach. Because reading about this, hearing about this in theory on this podcast, it sounds inspirational. And it's helpful in creating awareness and sparking that fire inside of you to say, hey, listen, this is something that you truly want here. But finding your authentic path forward from identification with the ego and forward from using energies of conditional worth, shame, guilt, and comparison, moving away from those, it can feel very confusing and can lead us to places where many people think that they're doing it wrong or that they're broken or that they need to give up. And coaches are here, I'm here as a coach, to show you, remind you who you are, what you are doing with objectivity. We're here to provide compassion, support, clarity, insight, accountability, to stay with yourself in your journey. A coach is there to keep you from abandoning yourself again on this journey into unstoppable growth and slipping back into the behaviors of conditional worth, the behaviors of using pain, fear, and guilt. A coach is here to help you remember who you are and the endless possibility of creating and expressing that in the life around you with your truest desires. It is about keeping you on your authentic path forward. So these are the things that I wish for you all to take from today. That self-sabotage is a term we want to stop using because it's not what we're doing. And by using it, we keep ourselves in a space of victimhood. We keep ourselves in a space of brokenness. And we keep ourselves in a space of using pain and self-disgust as our way to create change. You are not broken. You are not flawed. You are a powerful and beautiful and flawless being having a human experience. And that experience is full of illusions. And it's designed to be uncertain and temporary. So stop thinking that you're somehow flawed. The next thing I want you to take from today is that self-sabotage is a complex set of beliefs that lead to some behaviors that appear confusing on the surface. And these complex beliefs want your attention. That's the pain that you feel. The pain that you're feeling that you think needs to be the motivator to change. It's actually you want to lean into that because it's asking you to look at these complex thoughts and beliefs. I also want you to take from today that the way that we change comes from abundance, expansion, and expression of who we already are, not from becoming what we think we need to be. We can use energies of curiosity, abundance, compassion, love, expansion, excitement, unconditional worth, and possibility of abundance to create true, authentic change in our life once we have chosen to wake up from our attachment to the ego and make changes about expressing who we already are, not trying to prove our worth by becoming something that we think we need to become. The journey of change is one of remembering who we are, not becoming something. You don't self-sabotage, you're just following some really old generational patterns that have been laid out for you, and for all of us. You've not been shown yet that there is another way, and I'm here to help anyone who wants to find their authentic way and remembering who they are and shedding away these false desires and moving into the truth of expressing who you truly are in this life with abundance. I love you all so, so much. I really, really do. I hope this week's episode brought some clarity into what this behavior is that you might be calling self-sabotage or thinking that there's something wrong with you. I hope you can see that there's another way forward that is about real, authentic change and growth. And I want to help anyone who wants to get on that path. All right? That's all I have for you all today on this idea of self-sabotage. I wish you all the most awakening in the end of your week, where you begin to see some of the patterns of how you've been trying to create change in your life in the past and why it's not working for you. I wish you the most compassion and acceptance and abundance as you wake up to this. I wish you to begin uncovering the true you that wants to be remembered, not created. Remembering. Go into the rest of this week. Begin that process, my friends. Begin remembering who you are. Because that being is beyond words. All right? I love you all until we meet again here next week. Ciao. Hey, thank you for listening in this week. I hope you enjoyed the content of this episode. If you did, please subscribe or follow this podcast to receive the newest episodes every week as I bring them to you here on the Connect Your Health to Life coaching channel. Ratings, reviews, and comments are always appreciated. These allow me to know more of what my listeners would like in the podcast and allow for more people who may be searching for a podcast just like this one to find the Connect Your Health to Life coaching channel. If you would like more information about me and the work that I do with my clients one-on-one, then please visit my website at www.slch.ch. Again, that is www.slch.ch. You can also find me on social media on Instagram at SethLusk_coaching. Again, that is SethLusk_coaching. And on Facebook in my free Facebook group community called A Healthy Life Connection. We would love to have you in the group, and it's only 3 membership questions that you have to answer to join. And again, it's entirely free. And if you need any further information or just want to say hello, feel free to send me an email directly at slusk.health@slch.ch. Again, that is slusk.health@slch.ch. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to our next time together. Ciao.